There are. Sure there are. And just the fear of it. Within 2 days of being in the military, they warned us, some of you will be captured. And they will immediately, the Geneva says name, rank, serial number, and they don't care about that. They want information. And they will use a technique, the technique that they told us about is they will, men are in combat, women weren't allowed in combat. And they will take a real thin piano wire and attach it to your body. And you will say, what tune would you like to hear? Because nobody wants that kind of pain. I mean, we see the movies in Hollywood. I got news for you, nobody wants that kind of pain.
Part of the male body?
Yeah. The one that'll get the song right away. I mean, why dance when you can just sing? I'm sorry for you guys, It's reality. It's reality. I mean, if you want information bad enough, you have to get the information if lives are at stake. In a military situation, it's the lives at stake. When we talk about terrorism, lives are at stake in a whole different situation.
Well, I'm not very mean on torture, but I do think it should be allowed because as much as we want to be ruled by correct morals, most the rule goes up. It isn't really ruled by morals. You're always going to have bad people, and those bad people will always
do bad things.
And we're not living in a perfect world either, where everyone does what's right. So if we have really, really bad people out there, then and we can try and live according morally. If we can find another way to extract information besides torturing, we should do it. But I'm pretty sure there isn't one if they haven't found it already. So that's just my
What's the alternative if we say, okay, no torture whatsoever?
Well, if they're successful, you lose lives.
Intelligence?
Well, intelligence works too. I mean, quite frankly, the intelligence community is pretty well acknowledged that we had all the information we needed to stop 9/11. We had systems in place that didn't allow it was called a smokestack intelligence community. So the home people, the FBI, were not allowed to talk to the CIA and In fact, when they were in the towers, even the police and the fire people couldn't communicate. They didn't have the same channels of communication. But we had the information. Now we've tried to rectify that, so we do have some sense of, and if they're right that we've stopped attacks that we'll never know about, then we've kind of rectified some of that. So intelligence works, except when it doesn't. That's the ticking time bomb case. We have evidence, we have a person, we just can't get the right information. Where's the bomb? Is it another building? Is it the Sears Tower? Is it the Wall of America? We don't know. But we do know it's out there, or at least we believe we have enough intelligence to tell us, hang on.
So is there any evidence that supports the idea that positive incentivizes torture?
For some it will. It depends on the mindset of the people who've come to do harm. And some are willing to die for it. They're called martyrs people. There are people willing to die for it. I mean, they'll blow themselves up. They'll blow themselves up. They're okay with that. Go ahead, you had something to say.
I was going to say the same argument for euthanasia when we were talking about how people were against it only because they think that the doctors would give up too easily. I'm saying the same thing with against torture. You would say that, for torture. Against torture, sorry.
No, I hear the argument. Sure.
Would we take the easier route and just torture them instead of going through the procedures of,
Or take the contrapositive. Some may be real eager to do the torture. Let's get right to the quick and end this right away. So then Dershowitz has this additional comment to make. He says, if we endorse it, and we do it in a democratic way, and we do it as openly as we can, and yet still allow the procedures to go in the background, what does that say about us as a moral people? We always have the argument, well, they do it, we should be allowed to do it then. I don't know if that's a moral argument. I don't know if that's an equivalency. It's an argument, but I don't know if it's an equivalency. What does that mean or say about us as a culture that we endorse torture even to death? And again, you can make a justifiable argument. I mean, that's the good point about arguments. You can make a good argument.
Hypothetically speaking, let's say our justice system isn't ungodly slow and broken. if it wasn't an open...
Hang on, I need to catch my breath.
Let's say...
That was sarcastic, by the
Let's
way.
say that you could theoretically have a board of people or a way of making a decision and go, okay, we know that this person has information. We have them in custody. We need to do these things to get more information. And then you get a overwhelming majority of the population to either agree or disagree to the interrogation technique. Is that the idea here?
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, you want popular support, like slavery. Yeah, all of the arguments have an upside and downside.
If you have that board of groups, all out, it's bureaucratic red tape. It would take forever to come to a decision.
I'm saying
In a perfect
Yeah.
world, but even in a perfect world, it would still take forever. You know, sometimes when you're put in a position where you have moments or seconds or microseconds to decide, all right, I agree, it's accountability. Nobody wants to be accountable. Nobody wants to be the execution. Nobody wants to be but things have to come.
The reason that we have the system we have now is for expediency. And again, if it's saving lives, it works. Probably the most poignant argument or question that Dershowitz raises is, if we're going to endorse torture, then someone has to torture. Like if we're going to endorse execution, someone has to execute.
That's hard work.
Who's going to be the executioner, and what does that do to the executioner? Like right now, how many of you who endorse torture would be willing to be the torturer?
I don't think I ever could.
Say what?
I don't think I ever could.
Yeah, right. Most people couldn't, because it takes a mindset. Now, when I reviewed this in my mind early this morning, I thought whoever immediately raised their hand would be disqualified. Because you can't enjoy what you're doing. Have you ever heard someone scream in inflicted pain? Something that someone else inflicts on someone else. Never have. Well, you wouldn't. Now, normally about this time, what I would, well, I'll leave him out of it. I would say, okay, here's an example. Okay? And you just, it's not meant to be friendly. When they bring you into the room, they're not saying, would you mind putting your hands out so we can duct tape them to the table so you can't move when we get around to torturing you? I'm sorry, did I freak you out? That's why I moved away from it. I'm sorry. And then we duct tape your hand, and you cannot move. The initial part of torture isn't what you're doing, it's what they're thinking. It's the mental strain you've already put them under. There's no getting out of this. This is not music anymore. Someone's put me in a position I cannot get out of. Now, I can imagine maybe 8-inch needles, you know, not needles you squeeze stuff through, like, yeah, like pins, but long. And you want them to be warm, because you're gonna, your nails go to here. And I have to do this to make the exam object lesson. That was what and you can just, if they're warm, they'll go right in, right to the knuckle. And I can't move my hands. I can't move my hands. If one doesn't work, I have 9 other fingers to play with. Kind of a new way to do your nails. And if that doesn't work, you have 15 knuckles on each hand. And you have 10 fingers on each hand, right? And someone, if we're going to do that, someone has to, I apologize, it's kind of graphic, someone has to do this and listen to it and go to bed at night and probably have it go through their head over and over and over and over, because someone has to save lives. That's the whole presumption of torture. Someone has to torture. Go ahead.
Just
I'm reluctant to take my hands away because I'm not done, but I can go back and assume the position. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, is there like certain tests that would be like done on that person that's doing the torturing? Like, yeah, because I don't know if it takes like a serious sociopath just to like be able to do that and sleep well at night. I don't know.
So I can't get too much into it because it is currently still being investigated, but my brother's a Florida Highway Patrol officer. Was involved in an officer-involved shooting 2 years ago, where he did have to take the other person's life. Even with knowing that that person is still being investigated by the CIA as a homegrown eco-terrorist, and he probably saved lots of people's lives, he still deals with the fact that he had to take that person's life to save his other officers, civilians.
I appreciate that. The safe zone is we're in the ivory tower, so we're talking about it, and it made sense to a bunch of us to torture people because we want to save lives. And then when we get down to the nitty-gritty and the nuts and the bolts, and we start to really sit down and think, so what are we really talking about? And who are we really talking about? I'm less concerned about the terrorists than I am about the person who's doing the torture. You can't be a sniper in the military without going through a great psychological evaluation. Anybody can be taught to hit the side of a barn. Some are better at it, obviously, than others, but you're worried because it's up close and personal. If you're torturing someone, and if we really have to do it, and it has to get done, we invent a class of people, like we have executioners. We have a class of people, frankly, that do hospice nursing. Not every nurse can do that. That is a unique skill set to deal with people at the edge of life.
You're still making
Day after day after day after day after day. I counseled alcoholics for 13 years. I literally went out in the woods and I cut lumber for a year and a half. Your success ratio with alcoholics is 3%. I know guys who stayed, and women, but mostly guys who stayed sober for 20 years and died drunk. It's like, what am I doing? Am I really helping anyone? Am I really... Well, for 20 years they were sober, and then they go out and they get drunk. I always said it's the third hardest job in the world. The first one is hospice, watching people die. The second is being a cancer doctor and nurse, and then dealing with people regardless of what you say or do to them. A friend of mine called me one day from up north. She works at a private, like Ronald McDonald. It's a private hospital, so they have a place for families. She calls me up and she says, this is really weird. You know, on the first floor we have a public bathroom for people who come in. They're signing in, but every room's got their own bathroom. She says, so in the public bathroom, my boss went in there and the tank was running. You know, the toilet was running, so he lifted the top up and there was a bottle of booze in there. And her name's Charlene. He looked at Charlene and he says, who do you think did this? So she knew I used to counsel alcoholics, so she called me and she says, this is the weirdest thing. Who do you think did that? And I said, well, one of your staff. Why do you say that? And I said, because anyone who's drinking in the room has their own toilet. If they want to keep it cool, they put it in there. I said, I tell you what, get a couple of cans of green beans and put them in place of the booze and leave them there. And whoever's put the booze there will come back with, trust me, they'll come back with the can and they'll go, look what someone put in there. And then you can say, yeah, we removed your booze and we put your green beans in there. Does it make any sense to put green beans in the toilet tank? Well, no, that's stupid. Then why do you put booze there? You put it in the fridge to cool it, or you put it on you don't put it in a toilet tank. I don't think you do you? No, don't tell me. I don't want anybody to have